Welcome to Vintage SF. I'm Richard Rempel, and today we're going to talk about a book that my friend Chris at Liminal Spaces gave me. The Man Who Awoke by Laurence Manning, first serialized in 1933 in Wonder Stories, and then printed in 1975 as a fix-up novel by Del Rey Books. Del Rey Books is an imprint of Ballantine. The Man Who Awoke was initially 5 stories in Wonder Stories in 1933. They appeared in the March, April, May, June, and August editions of the magazine. In the table of contents, we find 5 chapters, or what they call books. Each one is named for one of the stories from 1933, with the exception of Book 1, The Forest People. That name is a new name. The original magazine from March 1933 was titled The Man Who Awoke. Some people might think of this as a time traveler story. It's more like a Rip Van Winkle story. We have somebody who goes to sleep for thousands of years and wakes up again. In this way, his life is episodic and we get different glimpses of time 5,000 years apart. The first story of The Man Who Awoke, titled The Forest in the book, introduces our protagonist Norman Winters. In a bunker buried deep within the earth, he has the means to be able to survive years and years of sleep. He first awakes in the year 5000. Humanity is struggling to save itself from the world's littered, stagnant wreckage after what has become known as the Great Age of Waste. That's our time. There's a political rivalry between the younger generation and the older generation regarding the waste of resources. The second story is set in the year 10,000. It's titled Master of the Brain. After a long second sleep, Norman Winters awakes and finds that the world is dominated by the brain, a supercomputer that knows all, sees all, and feels nothing. Thanks to its cradle-to-grave supervision, human life is easy and comfortable. But what will happen when the brain realizes people are superfluous? Winters tries to convince some of the scientists that they need to escape the brain. Winters awakes from his third sleep in the year 15,000. People can now program their choice of dreams and sleep their lives away, so much so that the sleeping outnumber the living, and Winters needs help to stop the implosion of civilization. Manning, in 1933, was writing about a virtual reality. You could choose the story you wanted to live. It was better than the reality you lived in. But sleeping your lives away would eventually deplete the population of Earth. Could Winters persuade enough people that it's best to live our lives in reality? Chapter 4, The Individualists. Winters wakes up around 20,000 AD. Each individual has his own mobile city that they live in that provide for all their needs. One of the residents explains to Winters, "What then is a city? A place for houses to collect people? Not at all. It is a machine, a complex thing, almost alive in the animal sense of the word. Power is radiated on copper nerves. Water travels through underground arteries. Food passes through the kitchens and is cooked and travels to the proper citizen needing sustenance. Telephone and television connect the separate units into a whole, even as nerves. This is a city in its broader aspect, is it not?" "I suppose you could look at it that way," replied Winters. "And then the specialized services of a city. They are a millionfold. My own city is not the latest model, but," she glanced about her with some pride, "I venture to say that not even under the brain were there so many conveniences at hand in a city." The covers for the books from the 1970s drew their inspiration from this interior illustration from 1933. The Ballantine publication of The Man Who Awoke has art by Dean Ellis. The Sphere science fiction book has art by Peter Jones. All the interior illustrations I've been showing you are thought to be by Frank Paul. And the last chapter, The Elixir. Winter wakes up in 25,000 AD, and scientists have discovered the secret of immortality. But is mankind ready for it? Is immortality boring without a purpose? Humanity scatters to the far corners of the universe seeking knowledge and experience, leading to a quest toward the meaning of it all. Laurence Manning was a Canadian science fiction author. He was born July 20th, 1899. His 2 older brothers signed up to serve in World War I, and he was eager to join too, but he was still in training and never saw action as he was too young. Manning lost his oldest brother in the Battle of Vimy Ridge in France on April 9th, 1917. His second brother suffered wounds in the same battle but survived. He eventually died in 1924. In the 1920s, Manning moved to the United States. He lived in Manhattan before moving to Staten Island in 1928, where he began writing short stories for several pulp science fiction magazines. Manning had success publishing several serials, but he gave up his writing career at the end of 1935 and devoted his time to a mail-order nursery business he owned and managed. In fact, he was the author of a successful book on gardening, The How and Why of Better Gardening from 1951. I had to keep reminding myself as I was reading The Man Who Awoke that this was written in 1933. Manning had amazing insight to what was coming in the future. He predicted ecological disaster, a waste of our natural resources, and even global warming. He talked about supercomputers and basically an AI controlling us. He even talked about virtual reality and predicted people would want to live there over their real lives. And the convenience of your own city in your own home. In other words, everything could happen in your own abode. It seems to me with all the delivery services and our conveniences that we are close to that ourselves. And then ultimately, would immortality remove purpose from our lives? Manning's ideas and his prose still ring true today, almost 100 years after this was published in the magazines. I can see why Chris from Liminal Spaces was very excited for me to read this novel. Before I give it a rating, I think what I'd like to do is re-watch Chris's review of this novel. Then I'll have some reactions to it and give you a rating for this book.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another video by Liminal Spaces. I would give this book in rating an 8 out of 10. Absolutely fantastic. Really enjoyable read. I highly recommend it. It's probably the best, it is the best of the forgotten pulp that I have read. And when I say forgotten pulp, I mean stuff like this that's a one-off, that's a name that you never really hear come up in conversation.
So it looks like Chris and I have pretty much ended up in the same place. He was amazed at how prescient Laurence Manning was. Now, if you're looking for a copy of this book, you can either look for the Ballantine Del Rey copy from the United States. It was printed a couple times, and there was a Sphere science fiction book from the UK. It's been out of print now for a number of years, and some of these stories appeared in anthologies. So if you see Laurence Manning in one of your short story books, take a look at his work. Now, Chris's review, which is linked in the description to this video, was filmed about a year ago. If you haven't seen Chris since, he's let his beard and hair grow. If you look at one of his current videos, it'll be almost like he has traveled through time for you. I'm in agreement with Chris's assessment. I give this one 8 out of 10 as well. I recommend this scarce pulp gem. So have you ever heard of Laurence Manning? Have you read some of his stories? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, don't sleep on Laurence Manning and keep reading.